It started like any ordinary trip, at least that's what she wanted me to believe. Sarah had planned a 5-day getaway with her friends, a girls' trip she claimed was just for fun, for bonding, for freedom. But I had learned, through years of subtle betrayals and unspoken truths, that freedom often comes with hidden agendas. And I noticed the first red flag almost immediately. She blocked me. Not just on social media, not just a casual message, but a full, deliberate block. No calls, no texts, no contact. It was as if she was declaring a 5-day blackout, a line drawn between her life and mine. Most would have panicked, argued, or chased. Not me. Calmness had become my ally, observation my weapon. I let it sit, let her think she had the upper hand. I knew better. I reached out to a trusted friend, someone who understood the subtle dynamics of human behavior, someone capable of sending a single, seemingly casual message that would reach her without alerting her to my awareness. 30 minutes later, the course of the trip, and our story would shift entirely. I had learned that in situations like these, patience and strategy are far more powerful than confrontation. Every move she made, every attempt at secrecy, every smirk or laugh, was now visible to someone who was calm, collected, and fully aware. And as I waited, sipping my coffee, observing the patterns I had learned to read, I knew the moment of reckoning was coming, not through anger, but through subtle, unavoidable consequence. Her friends didn't know, of course. They laughed, unaware of the invisible chessboard around them, unaware that every casual glance, every decision Sarah made, was being mirrored, analyzed, and anticipated. The beauty of it wasn't in revenge for revenge's sake. It was in justice, precise, deliberate, and inevitable. I leaned back, letting the tension build. The calm before action is often the most powerful moment in any story of betrayal. And in that quiet observation, the first real shifts began to ripple through the trip, unseen, unstoppable, and unavoidable. 30 minutes, just 30 minutes, and everything would change. 30 minutes had passed, and the first ripple of change appeared. A simple message, innocuous in appearance, had reached Sarah in a way she never expected. It wasn't a confrontation. It wasn't a threat. It was a subtle reminder that her actions, her decisions, and her attempt to control the narrative were visible to someone who had already anticipated every move. I watched as the dynamics of her trip began to shift. She laughed less, her gestures became smaller. The confidence she had wielded so freely started to waver. Her friends, oblivious to the quiet storm unfolding, continued their chatter and drinks, unaware of the underlying tension that was now threading its way through the day. I had learned long ago that patience is a weapon sharper than any fury. The same strategy one had applied to betrayal in the past now worked here. By allowing the consequences to unfold naturally, by letting her realize the vulnerability she had ignored, I created a situation where clarity would emerge organically. 30 minutes had been enough for subtle unease to begin its work. Sarah tried to shrug it off, forcing smiles, making jokes that no one laughed at, trying to maintain the illusion that nothing had changed. But the truth has a way of breaking through even the thickest facades. And this was no ordinary truth. It was the revelation that someone she underestimated had full visibility over her actions. I remember thinking with quiet satisfaction that the beauty of this moment wasn't in dramatic confrontation or public humiliation. It was in subtlety, in watching the calm calculation of consequences take root, like an invisible hand reshaping the environment around her. The power wasn't mine in the traditional sense. The power was in foresight, in control, in the inevitability of what would unfold next. And then it happened. A misstep, a slip, something so small yet so revealing, exposed her for what she had allowed herself to become during this trip, confident, careless, and completely unaware of the consequences of her own choices. Within seconds, the balance had shifted. Her confidence faltered, her friends glanced sideways, and the invisible weight of awareness descended. 30 minutes, a single message, and the entire dynamic changed. In that moment, I realized that betrayal is not always met with anger. Sometimes the quiet, patient approach, observing and guiding without interference, achieves the most powerful result. And Sarah, for all her planning and bravado, had unknowingly stepped into the consequences she had set in motion. The rest of the trip unfolded in ways she could never have anticipated. Every choice, every casual laugh, every attempt to maintain control, now carried the weight of scrutiny she hadn't counted on. Sarah realized too late that the person she had tried to block, to remove from her awareness, was fully present in influence even if unseen. The illusion of freedom she had chased now felt fragile, exposed, and uncomfortable. By the time she returned home, the shift was undeniable. I had not confronted her. I had not demanded explanations. I had not allowed emotion to dictate my actions. Instead, I had let patience and strategic foresight do the work. A simple message, timed and delivered with precision, had been enough to turn the trip from a playground of indulgence into a mirror reflecting her own miscalculations. When she walked through the door, expecting the same calm, unknowing partner she had left behind, she found something different. There was no anger, no accusation, only awareness. I could see the flicker of realization in her eyes, the first trace of doubt, the subtle recognition that her games, her manipulations, and her attempts at secrecy had been utterly transparent to someone she had underestimated. She tried to speak, but the words faltered. The smirk she had carried throughout the trip was gone, replaced by a hesitation, a recognition of the consequences of her actions. I didn't need to elaborate. I didn't need to lecture. The truth had already revealed itself. The power of observation, patience, and calculated action had done what confrontation never could. It had shifted the balance of awareness, and she was left to confront it quietly, personally, and inevitably. And in that quiet reckoning, I found a sense of closure. Betrayal had been met not with blind anger or impulsive revenge, but with subtle, undeniable consequence. The lesson was clear. Those who believe they can manipulate, block, or deceive without repercussion will eventually face the full weight of their choices. And the one who observes, who waits, who acts with precision and awareness, holds the true power in the narrative of betrayal. As I sat back and reflected, the satisfaction was understated but complete. 30 minutes, a single strategic message, had rewritten the entire dynamic of the trip, re-establishing control and awareness without theatrics. The quiet shift had done more than change her perception. It had restored balance. And in the end, the story wasn't just about betrayal or strategy. It was about patience, clarity, and the unassailable strength of calculated calm.